Okay, so I read the article Behind Influencer Marketing, Key Marketing Decisions and Their Effects on Followers' Responses. And it was published in the Journal of Marketing Management in April of 2020. And it basically examined the relationship, ever evolving relationship that we as consumers have with social media marketing and like sponsored ads specifically on sponsored posts that businesses and brands will pay certain influencers to post something, usually like a video or a like picture post on Instagram that influences their audience to buy their products. And the main thing that they wanted to research is the level of brand control and what that effect has on consumer engagement with the post and interest level that they found. Um, and what they found was actually really interesting. So the way that they did the experiment, how they set it up was they had a large group of female undergraduate students as well as some control groups across various ages to like make sure that there wasn't just a skewed effect on women. But that does seem to be the targeted audience for brands using social media sponsored posts. So that's why they chose to go with that group. What they did was they showed fake advertisements from a fake influencer with varying degrees of brand control, and then all the members that took the survey that saw the post were then given a survey to rate their own level of interest, what they thought about the ad, would they have bought the product, did they trust the source, how much did that have to do with that relationship. And what they found was that the higher the brand control, so the more forced it seems to the viewer, the less interested the consumers were. They also found that the disclosures across the bottom that say like sponsored or at like paid advertisement, which I think we all kind of knew this, but it's interesting to see it being confirmed, those actually decrease interest and make you less likely to buy the product. Obviously, we're not seeing a huge negative impact because since this is such a new field that we're delving into, the return on investment is still exponentially great. But this is just something that hasn't been studied yet, that they could be maximizing their investment even more by, instead of doing strict scripted kind of ads where you have to say certain things about a certain product, maybe reaching out to an influencer that has a good credibility and that's pretty popular and sort of like a field expert, they found is also important. But if you reach out to somebody like that and say, hey, this is our line of products, we'd like you to try out a couple things. If you like any of them, feel free to post about them. You know, kind of the less pressure you give them, they found the better the results are. And I thought this was interesting because I've seen it firsthand. I know in the like makeup community with Jeffree Star is like one of the best, most trusted makeup reviewers, if that makes sense, because he's brutally honest. He doesn't matter how drugstore high end or how well known and hyped up a product is, he will drag it to shreds if it needs to be, but he also gives positive praise. And despite him being like kind of a controversial influencer, no one ever questions his truthfulness and his credibility with his reviews. So that being said, anything he raves about and talks highly of tends to sell out because his viewers know that about him and they respect that. So it's important to be very careful with which influencers you're actually getting to represent your product. You have to examine their credibility, their trustworthiness, their expertise on the industry. I mean, you don't want somebody who specializes in their chain of influences fashion, but then you give them like a makeup or skincare product and they're not usually doing that. They're probably not going to get the best results as opposed to someone who is a makeup influencer, who people come there to see them try on makeup, you know. There's also, you have to think about their follower count, how popular they are. Somebody like that's a pretty like well-known Instagram influencer on Instagram may not have as much influence as someone who's in multiple fields like Kim Kardashian, or someone who's in reality TV or movies or other industries just other than social media itself or just one platform. That's going to be a widespread engagement. That's going to be somebody that people tend to trust more for whatever reason. Also, like, knowing that there's a big fan base to hold them accountable helps establish trustworthiness. But a lot of the study's findings were kind of reaffirming what we already knew. The only thing that was kind of surprising to them was there was a less significant difference or significance to the data they found that compared the interest of consumers with the specifics of a influencer, if that makes sense. So they didn't really find any connection with the looks of an influencer, the like whether or not they knew them. So that was kind of surprising, but it's not that they found like a negative difference, it's just that it was kind of too close to call there. But obviously there is a difference here with the sponsored ads and how scripted it feels to the consumer, which is what they called the level of brand control. So I think it's pretty obvious that you're not going to want to trust people that have what seems like they're reading off of a script. They're only showing the positive attributes of a product. You want somebody that's holistically thinking about the whole thing. Even if it is a positive review, it can't be every single detail positive. You have to have some cons in there, and it can't be like, my only complaint is I wish it was bigger. And, you know, it's not what consumers are looking for and what they trust anymore. I mean, maybe when social media advertising first came out, maybe they'd be more likely to respond to that sort of thing, but now we know better. We know what works. We know how to be more comfortable and candid in an environment like social media, and we know what we can kind of get more social context and body language cues out of social media, when we can kind of tell when people are being more truthful, or at least we convince ourselves we can. So, and that's another thing to look at when you're thinking about what kind of influencer or what influencer you want to put money into to sponsor your product, is how good of a influencer are they, if that makes sense. How good are they at making you trust them, or do they seem super happy and overly positive all the time? Because that's not what's going to be trustworthy. Somebody that's pretty negative about a lot of things, if you can get them to speak positively about your product, yeah, you're probably going to get a better trustworthiness aspect of it. But you know, that only works so many times before that person's fan base catches on to the fact that, wow, okay, these paid sponsorships he really, you know, sells out for, and like it's a conflict of his true personality. So you just kind of have to be careful with that, and that's what the study found. And the return that we could see on this about taking these things into account is what they found is actually great. And I think as this kind of field in advertising grows and expands more in the next following years, we'll start to learn that, and we'll start to really take that into account. We'll see the real effects of it as people start to realize what works and what doesn't. Because right now everything works. I mean, it's such a new field that we are inherently trustworthy of things we see online. Right now the main thing is TikTok. I mean, TikTok, anything you say is viral on TikTok is sold out within 10 minutes. I mean, I've seen these videos of people saying, I saw this go viral on TikTok, so I bought it. And of course it's all sold out, but then when you actually go dig a little bit deeper, it wasn't viral before they posted that video. So in a way, that could be a really useful social media advertising tactic. And this is something for the new generation of us that are moving up into the marketing fields to kind of get to play with and explore that none of our predecessors did, because this wasn't a thing. And the possibilities that we can kind of mess with it, not even just across different platforms, but with different influencers, different ad styles, you know, paid sponsorships, different levels of brand control. It's a lot to explore and play with, and I think everybody, especially me included, should be really excited about, which is why an article like this pops out as so interesting. And it actually helped me get into looking into jobs in market research and business analytics. This whole project really is like pulled out of me that I find that stuff really interesting, because it's ever evolving, especially with like modern and current things like social media advertising, seeing how exactly that works. And yeah, we all probably had an idea that paid sponsorships probably turn off a little bit of people once they see that little ad mark, but I mean, to see it on paper and the level of influence that can have on a customer base, like that's what's really impressive to me, and what really I'd like to see continue being researched and maybe be a part of that research soon. So again, Behind Influencer Marketing, Key Marketing Decisions and Their Effects on Followers' Responses, from the Journal of Marketing Management in April of 2020. Great read. I really hope you guys consider it for passing on to your next class. Thanks for a great semester.